Minutes matter. And minutes matter is a concept for people to think about. I only have a finite number of minutes in my life. What am I doing with them? And I don't give people a roadmap for what to do with their minutes. You have to choose on your own what to do with your minutes. What I tell people is be deliberate, be thoughtful, be proactive, and don't let the minutes just tick by. And I use a metaphor that I like people to think about. I say, think about a barrel or a bucket, whatever you can imagine. For me, it's a wine barrel. And in that barrel is...
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by book number 2 from DomBrightmon, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. It is the field guide to help unleash the elite performer that is inside of you. Cop it today on Amazon.com or heading over to DomBrightmon.com and snag it in book, ebook, and audiobook, so that way you can take it on the go and get yourself on the go to your northbound success. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, the Going North Podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, my friends. That's right indeed, courtesy of the wonderful site you love to love, or the site you have no idea about yet, the wonderfulpodmatch.com, where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if the podcast guest is cool, the freaking end of today's guest is definitely cool indeed, because he's a best-selling author, y'all. That's right indeed, as well as a motivational speaker, entrepreneur, business builder, as well as the chairman of the board and the CEO of the real estate investment company Invesque. So let's give it up for the wonderful S&W, the sensational and wonderful Scott White.
Hey, Dom, how are you?
Doing good. How are things in Scotland?
Fantastic. Grateful and happy to be here with you and your audience today.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, as you know, with all introductions, not allowed to be 30 minutes, 37 years long, and I probably forgot about a good, 36 years worth of content. So mine filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, Scott, since it's your first time here on Going North.
I think you hit the highlights. You hit what's important.
So all the weed, huh? All the highlights.
I love it.
So I'm guessing at the age of 13, you saw yourself as an investment banker and then being CEO of one that does real estate.
Not exactly. Careers take interesting twists and turns. I like to say it's like a marathon. It's not a sprint. You never know what's behind or around the next corner. And I'm just on a journey. It's not near the end. It's just another chapter.
There you go. There you go. Indeed. Another chapter, indeed. So speaking of chapter, you decided to write a magical book. So how does it feel to join the business of immortality?
It's fantastic. It's been an amazing, wild, fun, exciting ride. You know, I'm a super positive person. That's a lot of what the book is about. But I would tell you, this is the most fun thing I've done the last decade. It's been so invigorating and energizing, and the feedback's been wonderful, and the opportunity to talk to people like you about it has really just been a lot of fun for me.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. But man's even won awards for it too. So how was that process like? Did you think you're going to win awards for it too? And how were you surprised at all that you won?
Well, you know, when I started writing the book, my mission wasn't necessarily to win awards or to sell a lot of books. It was to get my thoughts on paper, share it with the world, and see how the world reacts. So it's been really fun to get the feedback. The awards are great. What's more important to me is that people are getting value from the message, from the book, from the speeches, and hearing from people about things they're doing differently and how they're thinking differently and how they're approaching life differently and how they're living a happier life. That's really the reward. That's really what has inspired and motivated me more than anything.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And what's funny is, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm not mistaken, a wonderful book titled "The Life is Too Short" guy. Like, you're not even a short guy, right?
Yeah, depends on who you ask. I'm not the tallest guy, so I guess it depends on where you put the comma in the sentence too.
That's right, indeed. So, what inspired the title, my man?
So I've always wanted to write a book. It's one of those bucket list things, but I wasn't sure when or how or what it would be about. And then during COVID, early in 2021, I started working with a new executive coach. I like to work with different coaches on different things, so constant self-improvement. And the gentleman, whose name is Kevin, in our first session, he gave me a bunch of assessments and I filled out some forms and took some tests, whatever. And then the second session, he says to me exactly like this. He's like, dude, you are Mr. Life is Too Short guy. Everything is get it done today. Rah, rah. Everything is amazing, happy, grateful. And I'm like, yeah, I think that's right. But I never really thought of it through that lens. And then I mentioned it that night to my wife, and she sort of connected the dots and said, maybe that's your book. Maybe that's the book you always wanted to write. And of course, I immediately reacted, well, that's ridiculous. What kind of book would be Life is Too Short guy? That it doesn't even, I have no idea what that would be. And then, I percolated on it for a couple of weeks, and she sort of prodded me along, like, hey, have you thought about it? And next thing you know, that was 2021, 2022. I sat down, put pen and paper, and wrote the book.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. It's kind of funny how things like that work, where it's like, yeah, it's a bucket list item, and out of nowhere, it's like a random conversation where it's like, oh, yes. It's like folks just bring out these ideas that you wouldn't even consider, or things you do on a normal that's basically a habit where you wouldn't even consider, because it's like, yeah, life is too freaking short.
That's it. It just came to me. It happened, and it's been really fun.
Heck yeah, indeed. Heck yeah, indeed. So, my goodness, any plans for another book since you got this one out the way and you
Absolutely.
been doing so great with it?
Absolutely. It was so much fun to write. I definitely want to write another one. I'm not sure exactly what it'll be about, but I'm working on a proposal now to possibly take some of the concepts from the Life is Too Short guy and create a more business specific book, maybe a business parable where I could take people on a journey to apply the principles to what you would bring to the workplace. The principles are very broadly applicable. They're applicable to home, they're applicable to your family, they're applicable to your friends, they're applicable to your social life, they're applicable to business. But I'm contemplating a potential follow-up book which really hones in more on what you would bring to the workplace.
Ah, sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And that's probably going to be still needed today, because a lot of folks, they're like, man, I'm stuck back at work here now. It's like, I tried the whole COVID entrepreneur thing. It didn't work out. It's like, oh, well, I guess I got to come back stronger than ever. So folks are probably going to be needed.
Or wherever you are in your journey, I think the principles are very broadly applicable.
Heck yeah, that's right, indeed. Just like a painter's broad strokes, right?
That's it. That's it. Broad brushstrokes. I mean, that was the intent, is to not give people specific rules to follow. It's a broad set of principles that some will make sense for you and some won't, and that's fine. You take the ones that make sense, you grapple, or you grasp, I should say, the tools that work, and those that don't, you ignore, and use the principles of what I call Litzig, Life is Too Short guy Litzig, to live a happier, better, more fulfilling life.
Ah, beautiful indeed, beautiful indeed. So, my goodness, as with life, my goodness, like, there's gonna be some setbacks along the way. I'm pretty sure you had a bunch of them. So, is there anyone that sticks out as the big one that actually became a setup for success for you?
I think the principles were very much, or the journey has been an evolution. There wasn't one salient moment in my life where all of a sudden you had that aha moment that everything changed. I think there were a series of big aha moments for me that I talk about in the book. The first one goes back to the mid 1980s. I was 10 years old and I was working on a project in the house with my dad. My dad cut his finger, and my mom or my grandfather took him to the hospital to get it stitched up. And in the middle of the night, my mom came running into my room and said, Dad had a heart attack at the hospital that night. And that was a big wake up call for a 10-year-old. He was fine. He survived. He and my mom went on to, they flew to Texas. We lived in New Jersey at the time. They flew to Texas because in 1984, there weren't a whole lot of people or a whole lot of doctors that performed bypass surgery. So he flew out to Houston, had the bypass surgery. And, in the 1980s, you weren't getting real-time updates. I wasn't getting constant texts and calls and emails. So a couple of days after the surgery, I was at my grandparents' house, again, 10 years old. The phone rings and I answer, or actually my grandmother answers. She hands it to me and I hear, Scott, it's Dad. And I could still remember that resonates with me in such a big way in terms of the first wake-up call of, wow, life's too short. This was a close call. And it really, I remember falling to the ground, just pouring out tears and realizing I almost lost my dad. And, he lived for many years beyond that. I did lose him about 17 years ago. And there's no doubt that was a major milestone for me, was losing my father. He was in his mid-60s. I lost my mom about 6 or 7 years ago. Another big milestone for me in terms of the evolution of my thinking and the life is too short guy. And I'd say the fourth one goes back to 9/11. I was in New York City. I walked by the World Trade Center probably a half hour or so before the first plane hit the building. I was about 6 blocks north on the 32nd floor of an office building when I heard the first plane crash. I then watched the second plane come across the Hudson, or down the Hudson River, bank on its side, and crash right into the building, and watched the explosion. I watched both buildings fall, and there's no doubt that had a meaningful impact on me. So I'd say the heart attack, my dad in 1984, I guess, the passing of both my parents, and 9/11 were four big events in my life, aha moments that certainly impacted my life philosophy and the life is too short guy philosophy.
Man, oh man, definitely some major milestones indeed. Definitely indeed, especially being able to survive all of that too. Because my goodness, and talk about timing. Because if it was 30 minutes, I guess any later, my goodness, it might not be maybe able to bless to have you on the show today.
And no doubt, no doubt, life's too short. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. That's one of the principles. Live today, don't wait for tomorrow.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So, my goodness. And the beautiful thing about that is the fact that it really helps folks to breed a sense of urgency because a lot of
Right.
successful people have that sense of urgency too. So, is there any other principles from the book you'd like to share that may help folks to have that sense of urgency to do something positive and do something with their life that they want to do as opposed to being forced to do it by other outside circumstances?
Absolutely. Look, the overarching theme of the book, I tell people it's the intersection or the cross section between urgency and happiness. And two of the principles that apply specifically to urgency are, one is take a chance and get it done today. So take that chance. Think about what is important to you. What do you want to do? And stop getting paralyzed by fear and risk. Reframe fear and risk as opportunities to try something. I talk about in the book another book called The Five Regrets of the Dying, and it was written by a palliative care nurse in Australia. And the key takeaway, the overarching big regret of the dying, is the regret of what I didn't do. It's not the regret of a mistake I made. It's not the regret of something stupid. It's the regret of I always wanted to fill in the blank, and I never did it. So I tell people, take a chance to get it done today. So that's one of the principles about urgency. The other principle about urgency is minutes matter. And minutes matter is a concept for people to think about. I only have a finite number of minutes in my life. What am I doing with them? And I don't give people a roadmap for what to do with their minutes. You have to choose on your own what to do with your minutes. What I tell people is be deliberate, be thoughtful, be proactive, and don't let the minutes just tick by. And I use a metaphor that I like people to think about. I say, think about a barrel or a bucket, whatever you can imagine. For me, it's a wine barrel. And in that barrel is gold coins. And those gold coins represent minutes. And every time I do something, including talking to you in your audience right now, I reach into the barrel and I pull out a couple of those coins. And I physically imagine myself pulling out those coins and saying, is this the best use of my minutes? How am I using my minutes? And the two key takeaways that I want people to think about is, one, you have no idea how many gold coins are in that barrel right now. There could be a few, there could be a lot. You don't know. And two, be careful of the leaking barrel. Be careful of the gold coins disappearing out of the bottom of the barrel without you realizing where they're going. How many times have you gotten to the end of the day the week, the month, the year, and you're like, I don't know what I did. Oh my God, I'm chasing myself. I'm running around. I got all these things to do. I got a long list. I'm not getting stuff done. I don't have a plan. That's what I want people to stop and think about today, literally, as they're thinking and listening to this today, and say, you know what? How am I using my minutes? Is this the best use of my minutes? Am I being deliberate, and am I using my minutes wisely to do things that I love to do?
That's what I'm talking about. That good old Eminem, the minutes matter indeed.
Minutes matter.
That's right, indeed, because they do. They freaking do, and they are finite too. Yeah, heck, even funny enough, I think it was a book called 20,000 Days. How that's probably like the average lifespan equivalent of 70 years on Earth, and it's like if divided down to the good old 1440, it's like, yeah. And some of that's dedicated to sleep if you're doing it right. So it's like, yeah, it's really finite, like really picking which thing that you should really be doing with your minutes. Cause yeah, you're right, they're so finite. Like that bucket of that pot of gold coins, like you there's always so many gold coins in there.
That's it. And look, it's funny you mentioned that because I do some similar math in the book. And what I say to people is when you're born with a life expectancy of 80 years plus or minus, you have 42 million minutes in your life. Realistically, most of your listeners are probably not newborns. So I'm going to just draw a line in the middle and say plus or minus they're 40, and everyone could adjust the math on their own. But at 40, you have 21 million minutes left in your life based on average life expectancy. As you said, you're going to sleep about a third of those. So now you're down to 14 million minutes. Invariably, as you get later in life, you're going to have a harder time, both physically and mentally, just doing everything you want to do. So let's just whack off 2 million minutes for that. You're down at, as a 40-year-old, you got 12 million minutes left. It may sound like a lot, but it's not. What are you going to do with them?
Mm, there you go. There you go, indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness, a lot of powerful jewels and gems being shared with the audience. Indeed, you've been on quite a few podcasts in the past. There's still some more to come. So, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're being on these interviews?
Question. I'd say I don't know if I'd say it's a question, but the key takeaway or the key message is these principles are so broadly applicable. So I guess the question would be, who does this apply to? Who's the target audience? Who can use this? How difficult is this? There's a whole bunch of questions in there that I sort of mushed together. And the key answer that I want all the listeners to take away is these principles are broadly applicable to everyone. Everyone, everyone. You could be a elementary school student. I've spoken to elementary school students. You could be in high school. You could be in college. You could be middle-aged. You could be retired. You could be dealing with a major setback, a death, a divorce, a major illness. You could be dealing with a highlight in your life. You just got a big promotion, a new house, a new car, whatever it is. Take a look at these principles and realize that happiness is not an absolute scale. It's a relative scale. And by applying some of these principles and using some of these simple tools, you could live a little bit happier today. And if you're a little bit happier today, you could be a little bit happier tomorrow. And then you can have a ripple effect, because if you're a little bit happier, you're going to go home and make your family a little bit happier. You're going to go to the office and make your colleagues a little bit happier. And that's what I'm trying to perpetuate. And that's the message that I want people to understand.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. You're so right. That app is definitely is a relative scale, indeed, because it's like it varies from really from day to day. Because like some moments may be bigger than others, and some moments where it's like, oh, you know what? This is a small moment. I'm gonna enjoy this one right here.
That's
It's like,
exactly
it's not.
right.
It's right, indeed. It's like they have the green tea as opposed to I don't know 5 cans of Red Bull.
That's exactly right.
So my goodness, my goodness. So with all of your wonderful experience being an entrepreneur, what would you say your three major lessons learned from being a successful one thus far? Because a man started so many businesses and now my man's a CEO of an organization helping folks with the real estate.
Well, look, it goes right back to the book, and that's part of the reason why I wrote the book, because I think it has opportunities for people to find success. And the most fundamental piece of advice I give everybody, and it's the most core principle in the book, is attitude is everything. The power of positivity. You have the ability to control and own your attitude. Take advantage of that opportunity. Wake up every day, be grateful, be happy, be positive. Live your very best day. And invariably, there'll be setbacks, but so much of your success is right between your ears. It's not your skill level, it's your approach to life, it's the lens through which you view the world. And that has transformed my view of the world. That has given me so many opportunities. And look, there have been setbacks along the way, which I talked about, but how I react to those setbacks has given me other opportunities to find success. If you ask for three, I'd put all three in that one and say attitude is everything, the power of positivity.
Yes, I'm talking about indeed. I'm talking about indeed. And of course, my man snuck in them tips indeed, being grateful. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. And making sure you react appropriately too. That's the major thing too. That's right indeed. Because some folks don't even react in a way. It's like, oh wow, let me invite more negativity. Let's
We
go
don't
ahead
need
and
that.
go. It's like, come on, don't do it with open arms. You gotta close that off. You gotta be like a mime, box that negativity in.
That's it. That's exactly right.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, so speaking of boxes, if your wonderful book, The Life is Too Short Guy, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's a question I've never heard. If your book "Life is Too Short" guy was a food, what would it be? Why? Let's go with a soup. It's a soup in that it is a mix of ingredients, easy to eat, doesn't require a lot of thought or work. If done correctly, can be very tasteful, can set the tone for the meal, doesn't have usually any specific harsh flavors or one particular kind of flavor in the soup, but it's the blend that makes it work. And it's really the blend of the principles in the book that makes it work. How's that? That was it. That was a good question, Dom. I like that one.
That was a darn good answer, my man. That's right indeed. I can't recall, and at least anyone recently still referring to their book as soup because hey, like it's good for you. It's definitely good for you indeed. Tasty, easy to make, and heck, cures what ails you.
That's exactly right.
There you go. That's right indeed. So if your mom makes the homemade soup, this is the one for you, ball. That's right
That's
indeed.
it.
That's right. You'll be taking on 20 acres of land all at once as a farmer once you read this book, metaphorically.
Okay.
So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if it'll wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Wow. I go right back to the book and I think about the principles that I've talked about in the book, and attitude is everything, the power of positivity. Funny things are everywhere. Laugh every day. Laugh often, laugh at yourself, laugh at others. Passion. Passion is one of the principles. Figure out what your passion is and live that passion. Your passions will change, but embrace them. Take a chance to get it done today. You're 25 years old. What do you have to lose? Don't be afraid of risk, and don't let fear stop you. What else? Can't make it alone. Another principle in the book, and that's really important. That especially at 25, I guess I wish I had thought more about, is building that network, understanding that we are, as part of human nature, we rely on one another. We need each other to thrive and survive. I think there's no greater key to long-term happiness and success than building a great social network. Doesn't necessarily mean you have more friends than anyone else. It means having friends you can count on and investing time, energy, and resources in building that social network. So that's probably five of the principles. Oh, another one I'd say is learn, learn, learn. Find something to learn every day. Every day is an opportunity. Be open-minded. Be willing to take in new information. Be willing to again take a chance and get out of your comfort zone. Try something new. Try a new hobby. Try a new activity. Whatever the case may be. Learn, learn, learn. So I would take the principles of the book and I throw them right at my 25-year-old self and live that life.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed, because life definitely is too short. That's right indeed.
That's
It's
it.
shorter than a 1 foot tall brick wall, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Get those friends, y'all. Those good friends you can count on. That's right
That's it.
indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. They're just as good as gold, if not better indeed, because life will be a lot better forward indeed. It'll be better as opposed to butter.
Ah,
So for those who also want to make their life better by keeping up with you and all the stuff that you're doing, my man, and snag some copies of your book as well, what's the best way for folks to do so, Scott?
So you can find out a lot about me, about the book, join my newsletter, about my speaking engagements and opportunities for me to speak at your organization by going to my website, lifeistooshortguy.com. Real easy. Lifeistooshortguy.com. That's the easiest way. You can always find the book on Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, or if you go to the website, you could actually order a signed copy.
Sweet. There we go. Get it autographed by the man himself, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So do just that, folks. Sign up for the newsletter. See what good news is out there. That's right indeed. Get that good news, not that random propaganda news that's out there floating around trying to sting you and leave you with something. Like, don't worry, this will leave you with something good. Good and positive, that is. Not the medical positive, the good positive.
That's it. That's it. I love it.
So, my goodness, any parting words before I close up shop?
I'd say our positivity. Remember to wake up every morning, set the tone right for the day, put on those crystal clear glasses, be grateful from the moment you start, and live your best life. You have an opportunity to impact your own attitude, to impact the outcomes around you with your perspective. It's all within you. Take advantage of that. Live your best life. And as I tell people, strive to make every day the best day ever.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for free. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.